is waste heat recovery and the systems. Definitely, it is divided into two. So first is what is the waste heat, what is waste heat recovery, how it is recovered, and which are those systems those are used for recovery of the waste heat. The entire presentation is based on these three principal references. There are a few other references also, but these are the three basic references. It is a waste heat recovery technology and opportunities. It is a report of Industrial Technologies Program, US Department of Energy. I have used one website which is expert in steam technology, and that is HTTPS. It is TLB company, which is expert in steam theory and steam technology. And of course, last but not the least, it is the books uh, published by Bureau of Energy Efficiency. It is book number 2, which is for energy auditors examination. That book I have used. Let us see this figure. It is well known. It is well known schematic. As everyone just will when you go through the figure, we see that there is a chemical energy being turned into heat. So nothing but it is a fuel given to water in a boiler. Steam is generated. That steam is then taken to turbine and then condenser, and this cycle is completed. Turbine is coupled to generator, electricity is generated, and this electricity is then distributed to the customer. It is a schematic of a simple thermal power plant. But when we see this thermal power plant in reference to the energy input and energy output, or you can say that what is the efficiency of this thermal power plant, then the method to determine this efficiency, that is called as a indirect method of efficiency determination, where the losses is determined, the losses are calculated. This is the Sankey diagram for a thermal power plant. This shows that the energy input, hardly 30% of the energy is converted into a useful output. But other forms, there is a loss. There is a friction loss. There is some loss that is going to the, again, the feed water. There is some losses taking place in the alternator. And a major component, again, it is the smoke, which is hot and which is released to the atmosphere. Obviously, whenever there is some heat source which is available at high temperature as compared to the surrounding temperature, as we know that there is possibility of an heat engine which will be used to come out or make some power. The question is whether we can go with such type of system. Sankey diagram of the thermal power plant. In short, all such type of heat which is not used in the process, which is not used by the industry, and it is released to the atmosphere, which is not used but can be used with a practical purpose. Entire such type of heat is called as waste heat. Even when we prepare cook food at our home, then if you have referred to the available literature, you must have noticed that the LPG stove, they also recommend that preferably use a flat base bottom utensil. The purpose is that there shouldn't be any heat that is waste out. So with these conditions, it is necessary, particularly in industry, to find out what is the quantity of heat that is available but not used. And it is called as the waste heat. Which are the different sources of waste heat? Definitely, everyone can at least highlight 3 4 sources of waste heat. In the boiler, the smoke is a waste heat. Even in our two-wheeler that we use, the exhaust, that is also a waste heat. In domestic, we use hot water, and then that hot water is released to the atmosphere. It is also a waste heat. There are certain products as a finished product, but they are initially in a very hot state. They are allowed to cool down. So this is the waste heat. There are different sources of waste heat. That is hot combustion gases discharged to the atmosphere. heated products exiting industrial processes. Let us say we have gone for a casting. The casting, it is very hot. Then it is allowed to cool down. So that heat which is released to the surrounding, if that heat is possibly utilized for some positive work, so it is nothing but a waste heat recovery. Heat transfer from hot equipment surfaces, motor that we use. When the motor is continuously running, you will find that the surface is hot. So can we go for such type of heat which is available on the surface, which is very hot and can be converted into a useful work? All these type of heats, they are called as waste heat. Nearly 20 to 50% of the energy consumption is discharged as a waste heat, while some waste heat losses are inevitable, which cannot be recovered. The scientists and engineers, they are trying to recover most of the heat, because always we will remember the Carnot efficiency. That Carnot efficiency. We are trying to everything. It is trying to reach to that Carnot efficiency. Of course, we know that it is impossible, but that margin is to be reduced down. Waste heat recovery entails capturing and reusing the waste heat for heating or for generating mechanical or electrical work. The purpose of recovery is that it is to be reused for some other purpose. Now, when we go for investigation of waste heat, then on which parameter we can find out whether there is a waste heat or not? The first is we should know which are the waste heat losses, different losses. Second is how those losses can be, how that heat can be recovered. So which are those recovery practices? Of course, when we say that it is a quantification, all the three, it is related to a quantification. So first we must know what is the quantity of waste heat available in the equipments as well as in the processes. And second is which are the feasible recovery practices that are used in the industry. I have used a specific word as feasible. Whenever we go for some suggestion of an equipment, a system, or a process, always we should go for three feasibility tests. One is the conceptual feasibility, means whatever we suggest, it must be validated by the existing laws of science, preferably thermodynamic laws. It must be validated. The second is there must be a manufacturing feasibility, that whatever I suggest, it must be manufacturable using all the known processes and available processes. At least that must be manufacturable. And third is the commercial feasibility, that whatever I suggest, it can be a conceptually validated, it can be manufacturable. But what is the commercial aspect, whether it is really feasible commercially? So this quantification is necessary. And then while we go for this quantification, we will find that there are n number of barriers. And hence those barriers has to be recovered, those barriers are to be overcome. Different waste heat losses arise from two important components. The first component is the efficiency itself, that is the equipment inefficiency. And I will point out a very simple example. It is a schematic. Let us consider that we want to light a bulb in my house. So for lighting this bulb, what are the energy that is used and what is the energy that is wasted? Here, the energy generated, it is given to the boiler. So boiler will generate steam, then it will rotate the turbine, then the dynamo, and then electrical energy generated, and then it is given to the bulb. Just see, it is a Sankey diagram. This thickness refers to the quantity of energy input, and just see what is the energy output. So you will find that if this is a very small energy output, there has to be some losses, and these are the different losses which take place in this system. It is exhaust from the flame, friction losses, resistance in the circuit, resistance of the lamp, friction in the driving mechanism, and radiation and convection from the surface. So these are the losses, and these losses are on account of the system inefficiency. If the system is 100% efficient, then definitely we would have obtained that whatever energy input, it is energy output, and which is highly impossible. Then the purpose is to increase this efficiency and reduce these losses. And the second is thermodynamic limitation. There are some specific processes where they are limited by the thermodynamics. I will give an example. You must be knowing that all thermal power plants, the coal-fired thermal power plants, there is a restriction on the temperature of the flue gases which are released from the chimney. As we know that they must be released to a lowest possible temperature. Then this lowest possible temperature can be the ambient temperature, but it is not the ambient temperature. All these exhaust gases, they are released to a temperature higher than 150 degree, 160 degrees Celsius. What is the reason? The reason is the coal contains sulfur, and when this sulfur gets converted into SO2, when it reacts with water molecule, we know that H2SO4 is formed, that is sulfuric acid is formed. And this sulfuric acid, it is notorious. It will increase the corrosion. So hence, the temperature of the exhaust gases, they should be such that it will not trigger this condensation process. And that is why the exhaust gases, they are to be released at a temperature higher than the dew point temperature. This is limitation. Though there is a scope for recovering the heat from the exhaust gases, but we are forced to keep that higher temperature. So this is one of the examples. There are such many examples wherein the thermodynamic limitations are there. There are two broad options of recovering industrial waste. The first is reuse within the same process, and second is transfer to another process. In all these two processes, we will require some sort of contraption, some sort of equipment which will help us to reuse this energy, and that is what the heat recovery systems. Obviously, we will be using some heat exchangers which will convert or which will reuse this heat energy. But then the question is how to reuse this energy. When we want to design a particular system, it is necessary to first know what is the quantity of heat energy available that can be reused. What is the quantity of heat energy available that can be reused? But the question is whether this quantity is only important, or is there any other parameter which is equally important? The parameter that is equally important is its value. It is not the quantity. We may have tons of exhaust gases with us, but the temperature, maximum and minimum temperature, if it is hardly 40-50 degrees Celsius, then we can say that it is a low grade energy. But if we have pressurized hot water with delta T very high, latent heat very high, then it can be graded as a high grade of energy. Always the question in a designer's or engineer's mind must be that what is availability, whether the energy is available in the high quality or whether it is available in the high quantity. Important is its value. Thus, the heat loss, the quality is to be first determined. How to determine the quality and how to determine the quantity? That is the question. The quality is based on the temperature difference, delta T, which is available. As we know, there is no heat transfer process can exist in absence of a delta T. We also know that if delta T is higher, then the heat transfer is higher. The second is quantity. The quantity is dependent on, as the equation suggests, m into Cp into delta T, or m into in the heat at a particular temperature if it is latent heat. So means the quantity of the fluid or whatever it is which is carrying it, that is important. We should know the amount of heat recoverable and also how it can be used. So means these two terms are very important. First is the quantity of the heat that is available, and second is the quality of the heat that is available. Quantity of the heat can be determined using a very simple equation, that is m into Cp into delta T. That is the mass flow rate of the fluid or whatever is carrying the heat. And second, quality, it is related to the higher temperature difference. Now let us classify this heat available, how it can be classified, and according to the applications. It is a list of some of the points which is available. The first is heat in the flue gases. It is, if you recall the heat balance sheet that we taught to the students, heat balance sheet of the IC engine, heat balance sheet of the boiler, heat balance sheet of the gas turbine plant, you will notice that this heat lost on account of flue gases is a major component. Nearly 25 to 30% of the heat is lost in form of an exhaust gases. If this is available at a higher temperature, definitely it has a higher potential. And it is what is done mostly in the thermal power plants. We have the accessories installed in the thermal power plant. These accessories, they recover the heat from the exhaust gases. Whether it is a superheater, whether it is an air preheater, whether it is an economizer, all these accessories, they are nothing but a heat recovery equipment. Second is heat in vapor streams. Most of the vapors, they do contain some heat in form of their latent heat. That latent heat can also be recovered. You must be knowing the flash steam recovery system. The flash steam is condensate is converted into a flash steam, and this flash steam is then recovered. So it is nothing but recovery of the heat in the vapor stream. And the surfaces which are from which the equipments are made. So these surfaces, they can be at higher temperature, and thus these surfaces will go for a convective and a radiative heat transfer. Process in the cooling water. In some manufacturing processes, we require cooling water. So for cooling water, the refrigeration system is used. It consumes power. But when this cooling water is used for some other purpose, there is a heat loss, and that is also to be recovered. Heat loss in making or disposal of chilled water. Chilled water is, again, it is at a very low temperature. When this chilled water is used, there is also a scope for loss of the heat, that is the temperature. In this case, there is no hotness, but when this cold fluid is exposed without being used for any other purpose, it is a loss of energy, because whatever energy is consumed for getting dropped down the temperature of the liquid, that heat is lost. So it is a sort of indirect loss of heat, and which is to be recovered. It's stored in the products which leave the processes. I have explained. Let us say we go for making some food, a hot rice. Huge party is going on, and there is a huge utensil fill up of with a hot rice, and that utensil is kept as it is. After some time, we find that the entire rice gets cooled down. It is a sort of loss of heat. You have made a basundi in huge utensil. It is very not good to take basundi as hot, so it must be cooled down. Now what is done? That entire container is put in a cold water tub, but it is a loss of heat. I have given you intentionally a very simple example to just get connected. Similar type of processes or products, they do happen in the industries, and where during the cooling process, the heat is released to the atmosphere without being used. One of such is that is the ash, which is collected at the bottom. It is thrown away. So that heat can also be collected. Heat in gaseous and liquid effluents leaving the processes. Hot gases and hot effluents are released to the atmosphere or to the water bodies. But before that, you must be knowing that in our India, there is a restriction on the temperature at which these effluents can be released to the water bodies. and it is, if I'm not wrong, it is something 40 degrees Celsius. So if the effluent is at a higher temperature, then it is required to cool it down, cool it down. So while cooling it down, the heat content of effluent can be utilized for getting some positive work. So these are some of the different classification or the types of waste heat which is available in industry. Uh, Usually this heat available is classified into three groups. One is the high temperature recovery group, second is the middle temperature recovery group, and third is the low temperature recovery group. There is no standard temperature differences for high, low, etc. Even it may vary from industry to industry. But in general term, that when it is from 650 to 1370 degrees Celsius, 1650 degrees Celsius, we can say that it is a high temperature range. And these are some of the processes where this high temperature heat is available, which is to be converted or which is to be utilized. Medium temperature heat recovery processes, which is somewhere in the range of 230 degrees Celsius to 650 degrees Celsius. So whatever is available in this temperature range, it is called as medium temperature heat, which is to be recovered. And these are some of the processes wherein you will notice that the medium temperature heat is available. And the most known is the steam boiler exhaust and the gas turbine exhaust. So these are the two most known processes wherein the heat is available and it can be very easily recovered. Third is the low temperature, as shown in this chart. It is from 32 degrees Celsius to somewhere to 32 degrees Celsius. And these are some of the processes which are available. This is not the only, it is some of the processes. There is a huge list. It is not possible to reproduce the entire list. But these are some of the processes. There can be addition of some processes to this list. But in short, now we can say that the heat recovery is classified in three terms. One is the high temperature, second the medium temperature, and third is the low temperature. Remember, the heat recovery system design will definitely depend on these temperatures. I will I will just quote one example how it will depend. In the thermal power plants, the superheated steam is given to the turbine for its purpose. This superheated steam at all stages, it is necessary to check the quality of this superheated steam. In short, it is necessary to check the quality of feed water. So hence, at all stages, this quality is checked. The steam is available at a superheated steam at a particular pressure. But when this steam is to be tested in a lab, it is to be brought down to a subcooled state. Remember, the steam is available at 110 bar at a temperature of 650 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Celsius. It is to be brought down to 40 degrees Celsius. That is subcooling. So when this conversion takes place, you will notice that from 350 to whatever pressure that steam is existing, from 350 to that saturation liquid point, you will first, saturated vapor point, you will first reach. So this phase is a desuperating phase. This phase is a desuperating phase. Then from saturated vapor state to saturated liquid state, another heat exchanger is required to recover this heat, where the heat, latent heat is recovered. This phase is a phase change phase. A separate or different heat exchanger is required. The design will change. And the last part is again from saturated liquid to subcooled. Again, there is a process. The heat exchanger is used to means from superheated to subcooled. There are three phases, and we will require the three heat exchangers. So it is so important to know the quality of the heat available which is to be recovered and the quantity of the heat available which is recovered, because the system design will depend on these two important parameters. And the third parameter is also equally important, that for what purpose I am going for recovery of the heat. What is the end use of the recovered heat? For what purpose it is being used? What is the operational parameters of this heat for which it is to be used. Accordingly, the entire system is to be designed. So thus now for waste heat recovery systems, we come across the three important parameters. First is what is the quantity of the heat available. The second is what is the quality of the heat available. And third is for what purpose it is to be used. Whether it is to be used as a in the same process or whether it is to be used for different process. So that end use must be known. What are the benefits? Benefits are very simple. It is direct benefits, that definitely the direct benefits will lead to the increase in efficiency, and as increase in efficiency there is a definitely a reduction in the cost and increase in the profit. I am specifically using word as profit because all this is related to the industry, and no industry works for a social service. Industry, definitely there has to be a profit, and all efforts must be towards increasing the profit margin to profit. And one way, the important way, is to reduce the cost. If you reduce the cost, the profit is increased. In this era of competition, it is not a good option to increase the selling price. It is not a good option to increase the selling price. It is good option to reduce the overheads. It is good option to reduce the cost so that the margin is increased by keeping the selling price at a competitive rate. There are indirect benefits also, that is reduction in pollution, because when we recover heat, as we know that there are certain norms, the Bharat stage 4, Bharat stage 6, it is known to you. So definitely while recovering the heat, the these systems or these rules are definitely followed. Then the reduction in equipment sizes as the heat is collected, so definitely the overall size of the equipment will also reduce. Reduction in auxiliary energy consumption. Again, just to give an example of a water boiler, that if there is no economizer, if there is no economizer, or if you go for a furnace oil boiler, the furnace oil boiler, it is required to heat the furnace oil first and then burn it. So in some cases, the electrical energy used for heating the furnace oil. But if we use the hot steam or exhaust gases for heating the furnace oil, then it is nothing but reducing the auxiliary energy which is otherwise required for heating the furnace oil. So similar type of options can be easily tried. Let us go to the second part, that is which are the factors affecting waste heat recovery. These are some of the factors. The first is heat quantity, as we have discussed. What is the quantity of heat available? The simplest equation is m into Cp into delta T. M is the mass flow rate of the fluid which is at certain higher temperature. Cp is the specific heat of that fluid, and delta T it is at what temperature it is existing. If it is steam, then this Cp will be replaced by the latent heat H, but it will give you what is the quantity of heat available. The next is the quality, that is delta T. Composition. Now, what is composition of heat? Composition of heat, it refers with the fluid which is carrying the heat, and accordingly what changes takes place while transferring heat. I have given you an example that where there is a first, it was a sensible heat transfer. When it is from superheated steam to saturated steam, there is a sensible heat transfer. Then from saturated steam to saturated liquid, there is a latent heat transfer. Then from saturated liquid to subcooled, again there is a sensible heat transfer. So what is the composition of heat that is available? In some cases there can be a phase change. In some cases there can be chemical change while releasing the heat. As we know, whether it is an exothermic reaction or endothermic reaction, accordingly we have to just go through its thermodynamics as well as its chemistry, that what is the composition of heat which is available, because it is also necessary to fit into the safety norms. The available heat that is to be reused, it must be kept in the safety norms of that particular state or for that particular nation. This composition is very important. The third is minimum allowed temperature. You may have a delta T very high. As I given you the example of thermal power plant and exhaust gases, it is true that there is a limitation. You cannot go lower than 150 degrees Celsius, 160 degrees Celsius, because it is not permitted. The process will not permit. So there is always a minimum allowed temperature to which these exhaust gases can be cooled down or that heat can be recovered. It will differ from process to process. That we have to identify, and accordingly the system is to be designed. Then the last part is very commercial as well as it is industrial part, that is operating schedule, availability of the waste heat and other logistic. If I recovered heat, what to do with this heat, how to store the heat, and how to use the heat. Stored in the day to be used in the night, whether it is a feasible part or not, what to do with this. So these parameters are to be taken care of while designing the system to recover the heat. So now in short, before going to the next stage, let us summarize that yes, there are some of the industrial processes wherein there will be definitely the waste heat. That waste is to be recovered, because recovering the waste heat will increase the efficiency of the equipment and the process. For recovering this heat, we must know what is the quantity of the heat available. Second, we also must know what is the quality of the heat available. We also must know what is the composition of that waste heat available. We must also know what is that minimum possible temperature to which, while recovering the heat, it can be cooled down. And last is what are the different operational schedules, whether this heat is available in the first shift, the second shift, in the night shift, or in which season, what is the availability, and what are other logistics, how to store it, how to use it, how to deliver it, how to transport it. All these factors, they are to be considered. The last part deals with the commercial part, very important commercial part. It is the commercial feasibility. We will go fast because we already discussed these terms. It is heat quantity, it is what is the heat available, whether we should go for a quantity or a quality. Whatever is recovered, we will say that it must be maximized. Recovery must be maximized. But then for maximizing recovery, whether we should have a higher quantity of it or a higher quality of it, what is necessary? It is really a very important question, because it will decide the equipment design. And then the answer is very simple. It is not only quantity that is to be bothered, it is not only quality that is to be bothered, but it is the combination of quantity and quality. While designing the system, we must concentrate, we must emphasize on the quantity of the waste heat available as well as the quality of the waste heat available. Waste heat quality is determined by the temperature, the delta T. Is the max, and we know Carnot efficiency, and that if the uh, source temperature is higher and the sink temperature is lower, we know that the Carnot efficiency is higher. It is the ideal efficiency. And as I have already said, that we know if whenever there is a delta T, there is a possibility of a engine that can run in that temperature difference, and because it is according to the second law. The second law of thermodynamics, everyone knows, is according to the second law. We can have an engine working in that temperature range. But when this engine works, the efficiency of this engine is also important. The ideal engine that we know is the Carnot engine. So definitely, whatever we suggest, it must be comparable with the Carnot efficiency. And as we know, it won't be higher than the Carnot efficiency. But then how it can be comparable? There is another term, that is work potential, that can be compared. That is, we have some efficiency, but our intention is not to have the higher efficiency from this waste heat. Our intention is that it should be highly usable. This heat which is recovered must be highly usable, and the usability of the heat is converted or transferred or calculated or given in terms of the work potential. What is that maximum amount of work that can be obtained from this recovered heat? And this is what is nothing but the quality. This is what nothing but the quality. Quality is a measure of the usefulness of the waste heat. Magnitude of the temperature difference between the heat source and the sink is the important determinant of waste heat utility or the quality. The source and sink temperature difference influences the rate at which heat is transferred per unit surface area of heat exchanger. Means if the delta T is higher, again going to the Newton's law of cooling or even the Fourier law of heat conduction. Let us first go to the Newton's law of cooling. As we know, Q is equal to HA into delta T or UA into delta T using the heat exchanger concept. Q is equal to UA into delta T. We know that if the heat transfer coefficient is, let us say, constant, and if the delta T is higher, definitely the surface area required for getting a particular heat transfer will be definitely lower. So hence the size of the heat exchanger is also dependent on this temperature difference. This is what it is wanted to say. The rate at which heat is transferred per unit surface area of the heat exchanger. Maximum theoretical efficiency of conversion. As we know, the Carnot efficiency. If delta T is higher, the Carnot efficiency is higher, and that is what the theoretical efficiency. Let us see this graph, this chart. On x-axis, there is delta T. On y-axis, it is heat exchanger area. And these are four processes are having the overall heat transfer coefficient. That is 5, 10, 25, 75. So in short, the heat transfer coefficient, overall heat transfer coefficient is increasing from diagonally from right hand to left hand corner. It is decreasing like this. If the temperature difference is lower, that is 200, and if the overall heat transfer coefficient is lower, then it is obvious that the surface area required for recovering a heat is very large. So means that heat recovery equipment will be a huge equipment and which is not cost effective. There is one more part that I will say later on after completing this slide. The second is if the U is 10, we find that for the same temperature difference, that is delta T, the surface area is considerably reduced. Here the surface area was nearly 6,000 meters square, and the surface area is reduced considerably. It is nearly 3,000. So there is a drop, 100% drop is there. So now this, let us go with the 25, you will find that the surface area is further reduced. The higher heat transfer coefficient, the surface area is further reduced. And this trend is there. So for a very high temperature difference, you will find that the surface area required for the heat exchange is very, very low surface area. But for a lower delta T, the surface area required is higher. Of course, there has to be a good match between the delta T and the surface area. It is not always recommended that go for a higher delta T. It is not in our hand. This delta T is determined by the process. You cannot determine what will be the delta T in most of the cases. This delta T is determined by the process, and hence this will not change in most of the cases. What change we will have to go for the determining what overall heat transfer coefficient we will require, and accordingly what should the surface area of the heat transferring equipment. You see the importance of the two terms. One is basically the difference in the temperature between the heat source and the heat sink. The second is the overall heat transfer coefficient. As we know, the overall heat transfer coefficient, it is very difficult. It is not a simple term because it has It has a component that is the thermal conductivity of the material that can be controlled by choosing the proper material. But there is another contributor, that is heat transfer coefficient H of the inner fluid, outer fluid, or a fluid. And if we know this heat transfer coefficient is very notorious because it is combination of three different terms. One term is the flow property of the fluid. Second is the fluid property, that is thermophysical properties of the fluid itself. And third is the geometry of the surface. So if you want to increase the heat transfer coefficient, you have to play with this. It is very difficult because if you go for increasing the heat transfer coefficient, you have to increase Reynolds number, that is velocity, and then the pumping power is increased. So hence, there has to be a very excellent economic balance to be achieved while playing with this, and hence it is important to go for to see the relationship between these three, that is surface area, overall heat transfer coefficient, and the temperature difference. This is what we know, it is the Carnot efficiency plot. As we know, as the delta T increases, there is increase in Carnot efficiency. Initially, this Carnot efficiency will increase very sharply, and then it will try to get settled down. So at a higher temperature difference, you will find that the Carnot efficiency will try to settle down. We are not interested in Carnot efficiency, but we are interested in this work potential. This E, it is the energy that can be recovered from the exhaust gases, that is m into Cp into delta T. It is the quantity of the heat available. This is the E dot is the quantity of the heat available, and this 1 minus TO by TH, it is the Carnot efficiency. So hence, this is the work potential, that is maximum possible work that can be recovered from that heat source. And we are interested in this work potential. So now the question is, definitely if you want to recover, increase the work potential, you cannot play with the Carnot efficiency, but you can play with the E. And if you want to play with the Carnot efficiency, this source temperature is to be increased, because there are some limitations on, we have already said that there are limitations on the lower temperature. So in short, while designing the equipment, it is necessary to check what is expected work potential, or what is that maximum work that can be achieved. Remember, this work is not a mechanical work. Then the next important factor is the temperature and material selection. As we know, the temperature decides and defines the selection of material, because there is a term, as everybody knows, we know inertia. Newton साहेबांनी सांगितलं what is inertia. But there is one more term, that is thermal inertia. It's similar to the inertia. This is the thermal inertia. Each and every material, depending on its properties, will take some time to reach to a particular temperature. Depending on the thermophysical properties of that material, this time required to reach to that temperature will change. And some of the material have a higher thermal inertia. They will take more time to reach to that temperature. Some materials, they have a lower thermal inertia, so that they will reach that temperature very fast, and they will again release that heat, and they will reach to a lower temperature very fast. For example, sand. Sand will get heated very fast and will get cooled down very fast. But if you go for a hot mild steel bar, it will take time to heat, and at the same time it will take time to cool down. And that is why it is one of the reasons that the old LPG stores, you must be knowing, some of my colleagues, they must be knowing, that there used to be cast iron stands, or the bottom plates to put the utensils on the LPG stores. Now those cast iron base plates are removed, and they are replaced by thin metal plates or metal rest, just to reduce this thermal inertia part, and it is nothing but a vestige of it, because that flame heat is first utilized to heat that sand, and then it is given to the utensil. So this wastage is reduced. This depends on the material selection, because if you recall the boiling curve, with the critical heat flux and the burnout point, that is sufficient to explain why the temperature is so important. Then waste stream composition we have discussed. Minimum allowable temperature at which the heat can be recovered. So now in short, last part is the economic feasibility, the capital, payback period, operating schedules, and the access to waste heat source when it is available. So with this initial and basic fundamentals, now let us now go to the different waste heat recovery systems. Up till now, we have seen that yes, there are certain processes wherein waste heat is available, and if it is not recovered, then it will be released to the atmosphere. It is a loss, it is the entire loss, because it will lead to ecological imbalance, it will lead to violation of laws, it will change the entire environmental system, and also it will reduce the performance of the system. So hence that heat is to be recovered. We are also seen that there are important parameters. First is what is the quantity of the heat available. Second is what is the quality of the heat available. Third is for what purpose the end use of that heat is recovered. And the last part is, though there is heat available, though there is a good quality, though I know that it is can be used for the end purpose, but the last part is how to make it commercial, feasible, because the entire task is to reduce the losses and improve the performance. It is not at the cost of money, but there should be a balance. And hence, it is necessary to know what is the capital requirement. It is necessary to know what is the payback period. It is necessary to know what are the different operation schedules in which I will use it. And lastly, the access to waste heat source, when that access will be made available. It is not that as and when you are interested, you will go and just use it. It depends on again the processes. It depends on the processes. Now let us go with which are the different options for heat recovery and which are the different technologies. First, simplest is the heat exchange, through which we can recover the heat. What is the heat exchanger? It is an equipment to exchange heat between the two fluids. These two fluids can be directly physically in contact with each other, may not be in contact with each other, may be separated by some metallic wall. These are the heat exchange. Recuperator. Recuperator, it is all shell and tube heat exchanger, then radiator, that is of heat exchanger. They have the recuperator. The recuperators, the two fluids, they do not come in contact with each other, but they are separated by a conductive wall. The recuperator. That the exhaust gases, they are flowing across the tube, and the air which is to be heated for some purpose is passing through the tube. These two, they are not mixed with each other. They are not coming in contact with each other. As you know, on the basis of this, the heat exchanger, they are also classified as a mixed the fluids, how they come in contact with each other or not. They are classified as recuperated. This is how the heat is recovered. Is the hot exhaust gases passing through this heat exchanger, wherein the cold fluid passing through the shell, hot gases and liquid, they are not getting in contact with each other, but the heat is transferred, and thus this feed water is converted to the steam. It is simple waste heat recovery. You can select the waste heat recovery boiler. I will show you the other figure of waste heat recovery boiler. Why it is called as boiler? Because at the end the steam is generated. These exhaust gases, they can be used for different purposes. That is that air preheater, wherein the air required for combustion is heated in the exhaust gases. Can be used for oil heater, can be used for superheater as a superheater, can be used as an economizer for heating the feed water. Even the gas geyser that we use in our bathroom for heating water, that is also a refrigerator. That gases, they do not come in contact with the food. But there are other heat exchangers which there is possibility of food coming in contact with. So I will not go into the classification of heat exchanger purpose of station to discuss what is heat exchanger and what is the classification. This is another use of waste heat in the industry. An absorption chiller. As everyone knows, these are the four important components in the absorption system: the evaporator, absorber, then generator, and the condenser. The generator, we usually use a low grade energy to separate the refrigerant. This steam is a hot steam, waste steam. Again, someone may ask a question that, sir, how the steam can be waste steam? Yes, the steam can be waste steam. In power generation, there are some tapping steam is taken out from the turbine, tapping steam, and it is for controlling the performance of the turbine. That steam is available at certain higher pressure. This steam, without releasing it to the atmosphere, it is passed the absorber, absorber in the generator, and then this is further again reused for heating the diluted absorber. So hot steam is heat content in this hot waste steam is reused first in the generator and second in the heater. The heater. Similarly, you will find that this type of waste heat utilization is also an absorber. We can go for different system designs as per our requirement. The next part of heat exchanger type is the regenerator. I have said that there are some heat exchangers where there is a possibility of two fluids while exchanging heat, they will come in contact with each other. Remember, there is a difference. When I am saying that they come in contact with each other, definitely someone will say that, sir, then what is the difference between the condenser, the jet condenser, wherein in jet condenser, the steam and cooling water, they come in contact with each other. They are direct contact with heat exchanger. This is slightly different. What is the working principle of regenerator? Working principle of regenerator is simple. This is a wheel. Wheel. This wheel has some metrics. Some metrics. The wheel is rotated. First, it is a charging cycle. The charging cycle, hot fluid will pass over this matrix or mesh. This mesh or matrix will store the heat given by the hot fluid. Store the heat given by the hot fluid. And then this wheel is rotated. The next phase, this hot matrix will come in contact with the cold fluid. Cold fluid will pass through over this hot matrix. The cold fluid will become warm. This will continue. This cycle will continue. First, in the charging cycle, this wheel gets heated. The discharge cycle will give its heat to the cold fluid, and thus it will become cold. Again, it will come to the charging cycle, discharging cycle, charging cycle, discharging cycle. This wheel rotates. Course, rotation speed depends on your application. As this wheel rotates, as the wheel is hot, then just call it as a hot wheel. The hot wheel, it's a regenerative type of heat exchange, wherein the heat is stored by the matrix and then it is released to the cold fluid. There are different forms of uh, regenerative type of heat exchanger. Not going to both types. Purpose is just to explain you the working principle of regenerative type of heat exchanger. What the hot wheel is, you will find that the hot warm gases they are going to this, then the cold air is coming. So this is getting cooled down and the wheel is rotating direction of the then accordingly select race size, rotation, hot temperature, master rate, cold temperature, so these parameters can be very easily discussed and decided. The innovative waste recovery setup is nothing but a heat pipe. Heat pipe very unique and really a good equipment which can be used for waste heat recovery. In this pipe, there are two components. First is the evaporator, second is the condenser. If you recall vapor compression cycle, there are four components. One is the compressor, second is condenser, third is the expansion device, and fourth is evaporator. The compressor refrigerant is compressed, its temperature is increased, then it is taken to condenser where pressure remains constant, but the phase is changed and it will possibly liquid to lower temperature. Then this low temperature, high pressure fluid is allowed to pass the expansion device. It is expanded to reach to a very low temperature and a low pressure. Then this low temperature, low pressure, maybe a liquid vapor passes to the evaporator where it absorbs heat, get converted to vapor, and again this cycle goes on. In this cycle, there are two equipment. One is the compressor and second is the evaporator. Second is the expansion. Compressor it is and they have moving. Same case may happen with the expansion. In this heat pipe, these two components are removed. There is no compressor and even there is no expansion. But there is an evaporator and a condenser. What happens? This is a sealed pipe tube with weak structure at the surface, and the annulus is open. The refrigerant, which is inside this duct, when it gets in contact with evaporator, the liquid refrigerant gets converted to vapor, and this vapor will pass through this annulus. The condensation zone gets condensed, and then it will pass to the wick. This will get continued. How the heat is recovered? If there is some heat available, waste heat available here, then the waste heat can be utilized to use this heat pipe. Now let us see, most of you have seen the heat pipe used in the gadgets. Heat pipe is used in the gadgets. This is the processor IC. And to this processor, the heat pipe is connected. The IC will liberate heat. That heat is to be rejected. This will work as the heat is absorbed. Now, this is the condenser end. This is the evaporator end. How the heat pipe works? Heat pipe can have various sizes of heat pipe according to your requirement. They can be designed with different materials, different wick sections, thick material, different uh, refrigerant, with different temperature ranges, with different pressure range. There is a separate session can be conducted on design of heat pipe heat exchanger. Time permits, you can go with that session at some other time. This is how in industry the waste heat is recovered. Please see this figure carefully. There is a heat from gas turbine, and before this, exhaust gases from the gas turbine releases to the atmosphere. Feed water is heated in the economizer. Then there is a boiler. There is a boiler. This boiler receives the hot feed water, and this is an evaporated, the waste heat boiler. Water that comes this tube gets heated, bubbles are formed, steam gets collected in the upper drum, and this steam, before using for a generation purpose, because in generator we need the superheated steam, this steam is first allowed to pass the superheater. So you will notice that superheater require higher quality of heat. So the superheater is placed just nearer the very hot flue gases, that is in the radiant zone. So thus whatever heat available at the waste heat the gas turbine plant is reused for converting feed water into steam, and from steam to superheater, and then it is taken to the turbine, and thus the power is generated. So it is how waste heat boiler works. It is copied from TLV site, is mentioned here, TLV site, and I will recommend those who want go for a very simple lucid uh, text material as well as learning material, particularly in the domain of steam thermodynamics, to visit this site, TLV, visit. They have a very good theoretical material along with very good figures, and all figures are animations and GIF figures, very easy to understand. This is another heat recovery, is recovery of the steam. Recovery of the steam, but it is also, you can call it recovery of the condensate. I will explain in a very in 1 hour. This is high pressure steam. The steam is brought to the trap, and there the flash steam is generated. Condensate, it is all of a sudden converted to a steam. See, when this steam comes to some sort of a application, condensate is formed, and that condensate is directly converted into flash steam. Whenever it is all of a sudden released to the lower pressure, as we know that at this lower pressure, the steam will evaporate. The content, sorry, water will get evaporated. Steam is formed. But this steam is at low pressure. Now please listen. The steam is at low pressure. Here there is a condensate. The condensate is collected. This steam is at low pressure, and now this collected low pressure steam is to be reused. Now I will go with some numerical values, quantified values. Let us say that this steam is mid pressure steam, where the pressure is somewhat nearer to 4 bar, let us say 4 bar, and this condensate which is at 1 bar. So now definitely when this will get expanded, pressure will be very, very low. Now this low pressure steam, it is to be added this main stream. Now what can be done when we want to add this low pressure steam to a high pressure steam? As we know, then this is only possible if at this point pressure of the steam is higher. What to do with how to increase the pressure? If it would have been air, we would have used the compressor to increase the pressure. If it would have been water, then again we can use any reciprocating pump or centrifugal pump, but we would have increased the pressure and thus it is mixed. As it is vapor, as it is vapor, we cannot use the reciprocating compressor or even pump. Then there must be something to increase its pressure. This is that equipment which is used. It is ejector. Must have now recall the steam ejector that we have studied somewhere in the first year, second year. Steam ejector. It is also called as thermocompressor. Compresses the steam using the thermal energy. At this point, you notice that there is one steam coming. It is high pressure steam, but this steam is waste steam. Assume that this steam is waste steam. Now, at this point, there is something. There is something which helps this low pressure steam to reach a certain high pressure, and that is called as a thermocompressor. The next slide, I will explain you how the thermocompressor works. It is as shown in figure. There is a converging section, there is a mixing section, again there is a converging diverging section. This motive steam, which is at high pressure, when it passes through this nozzle, the expansion takes place. And in this mixing chamber or suction chamber, the low pressure is reached so low that it is lower than the low pressure steam which is available at the suction. As in this section, the pressure is very, very low, it's obvious that this section steam will get introduced in this mixing chamber. And now this mixer, that is the motive steam, which is at higher pressure, let us say 9 kg per square centimeter. The suction steam, which is at lower, let us say 1. When these two stream passes through this converging diverging section, at this end, there is a discharge stream which is at some medium pressure or intermediate pressure. And that intermediate pressure is lower than the motive steam, higher than the suction steam, and sufficient enough which this steam will get pushed into the steam header. So this is the thermocompressor. Why it is called as compressor? Because the pressure of suction steam, which is at low pressure, is increased at this end. So whenever there is an increase in pressure, we call it as a compressor. So why it is called as thermo? Because it is not using any mechanical work, but its motive is thermodynamics. It is using the thermodynamic principles. So just to give a very good name, it is thermocompressor. It is just similar to steam ejector, wherein it is required to take out the steam and release it. How thermocompressor works? It is motive steam, low pressure steam, and these two are mixing here, then they will intermediate pressure. Now the next part of using the waste heat, waste is to use the waste heat for power generation, or it can be directly utilized for some other purpose. And this chart shows us some applications wherein it can be used for power generation. Traditional steam cycle in medium to high range waste heat can be used, and capital cost is not for what cost, it's capital cost. The entire system, entire unit, they have nearly 70,000 to 85,000 rupees per kilowatt. Kalina cycle, some of you might be knowing that it is similar to a Rankine cycle. It's a very unique change that Rankine cycle, as you know, condensation takes place at constant temperature and constant pressure. There is only one fuel used in Rankine. Kalina cycle is a binary food system wherein we have with this condensation phase change process does not take place at a constant temperature and constant pressure, but there is increase in temperature. This even the peak temperature also increase and thus the performance is increased. This Kalina cycle nearly 7,000 to 9,000. Organic ranking cycle is low to medium, slowly capital cost goes going on increasing. When we go for unconventional form of energy usage, capital cost goes on increasing. It is nearly 1 lakh, 0.5 lakh per kilowatt hour. And these are very innovative form of utilizing waste, converting into power. This is thermoelectric medium higher, piezoelectric low energy, and thermal photovoltaic, which is used again medium higher. They are not yet demonstrated in the industrial application. The laboratory application, they have been tried, are successful. Industry, they have not yet tried. Notice that the capital cost is very very high, 210 5 per kilowatt, nearly 17 rupees per kilowatt. Huge, huge equipment cost, huge capital cost. And no industry has yet tried for using this power. Power can be very small, simple, even domestic purposes that there are pies, pies. They use this hydroelectric system for generating power. Simple ranking cycle system, the direct can generate electricity directly plus available electric electronic isoelectric devices. And we know there are two one is the when we apply temperature to get a KMF range, vice versa. Again, it's uh, the that I expected exchange and support. You have suggested the way that the generators there. But is thus state array. You have put array. It, 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 test like it, how they that with vibration system will not really best available. Then I back and I have a lot of this. They are emitted. But for this emission, it is necessary to get raised this surface. Yes, please. Anything to communicate? These emitters, they must be at certain higher temperature. And now what can be done if we have a hot source with us? This hot source is used to heat this emitter, and then from this there will be emission. But this emission may not be as per requirement of the PV cell. So then there has to be some filter. This filter is provided. This filter will take care of the emission, and whatever is excess will go back to the emitter. This is a thermophotovoltaic generator. We know what is photovoltaic generator, but for this emitter to emit the radiation, we require a hot surface heating, and this heating is given by external source, which is a waste heat. Thermophotovoltaic generator convert radiant energy into electricity. These systems involve a heat source, an emitter, a radiation filter, and a PV cell. As emitter is heated, emits electromagnetic radiation. The PV cell converts this radiation to electrical energy. The filter is used to pass radiation at wavelengths that match the PV cell. If it is, let us say, if the temperature is very high, then definitely we will have more electromagnetic waves. As you know, they are also related to the temperatures. So then for this, there is some different range is available. So this filter will take care of that range, and thus excess, if it is excess, we return back. The filter is used to pass radiation at a wavelength that match the PV cell by reflecting remaining energy back to the emitter. This is also not yet tried by the industry, but it is successful in the laboratory. And you must have noticed that I have not paid more attention on the conventional heat exchangers which are used for heat recovery. Yes, there are radiators which are used for heat recovery. There are shell and tube type heat exchangers which are used for heat recovery. Condenser is used for waste heat recovery. There are plate fin heat exchangers used for heat recovery, plate type heat exchangers, spiral heat exchangers. All these conventional heat exchangers, they are used. But I have intentionally highlighted these two, three innovative heat recovery systems with a very specific intention that when I say that they are not yet tried by the industry, they are tried in the laboratory, then question came to my mind, can we try this with our BTech or MTech students? In my opinion, these three topics, they can be a good research topic for BTech, MTech and PhD students work upon these three topics. That is the piezoelectric generator, use it for waste heat recovery, thermionic generator, and lastly the thermophotovoltaic generator. These three topics can be taken up for further research by education institutions such as Bharati Vidyapeeth, COEP, MIT, VIT. All these institutions, they can come forward and they can start this research work in this area, in this domain. Now let us, we are coming to the end of this session, that which are the different opportunities and those key areas wherein we can work for. Is definitely to recover the low temperature waste heat. There are systems available for high temperature recovery. The economizer, superheater, air preheater. These are high temperature recovery systems. But low temperature recovery systems, they are not available and they should be developed. I know some of the BTech projects, they have been completed to recover the waste heat from the muffler silencer of a vehicle. Some projects were already been completed to recover heat from the fins, the engine fins, two-wheeler engine fins. Some work has been completed to recover the heat from the underhood. Underhood means when a four-wheeler, a truck or a carrier, the engine and the lower part, there is a space specifically provided for air to move, and that space is called as underhood. So when in the running condition, that underhood air is very, very hot. And then in this case, the surface temperature of the engine, it keeps on, it remains constant, or it remains in a higher level. So there has to be something which will recover this heat. It is also a low temperature heat. So there are some options not yet tried to recover low temperature waste heat sources. And some of these three, which I have already discussed, these are those three options which can be very easily used for low temperature waste heat source. In my opinion, the last one is feasible part in our laboratory, which we can go for. Then the next part is there are certain systems already available for waste heat recovery, but we don't know what is the performance index of those systems because they are designed and developed few years ago. After that, there has been a very huge changes in entire system design, even the material use. So hence the same system is to be redesigned, at least on paper, reassessed to check what is the performance, the present performance of the system, because the performance will definitely get reduced on account of scale formation on the surfaces, on account of corrosion, on account of small breakages, on account of vibrations, on account of erosion of the surfaces. All this will reduce or will lead to reduction in the performance. Because it is necessary to reassess all these equipments and then redesign them and try to optimize their performance. The third is high temperature system. The heat recovery is less common means because it is already in most of the cases it is recovered. Economizer, superheater, air preheaters, oil, oil heaters. These are all already the accessory part, they are there and they are used. But still there is a scope. There is a scope to reduce their sizes. Then alternate waste heat sources typically not considered for waste heat recovery. You have to identify which are such sources which are leading to waste heat but not yet thought of. And in my opinion, these are mostly all furnaces, all that is the ash pit, the pit ash, not ash, pit ash. When boiler combustion takes place, the flue gases they will pass through the flue gas passage, unburned fuel, and the ash that is collected in the pit is very hot. But very less efforts are done to recover this waste heat, which is in form of hot ash. Contains some unburned fuel also. Then clinkers are there. Ash itself is very hot. That that waste heat recovery is not that much thought of. Of course, it is not that it is totally not tried. It is tried, but the economical part, commercial part is not yet finalized. That has to be done. In short, these are the uh, temperature ranges with which we can work in. Is less than 230 to 650, and greater than 650. We have to go for design of waste heat systems matching with these temperature limits. This chart talks about what is the heat available. When we say the Carnot efficiency, that is, it is the lowest possible temperature at which the heat can be released, and it is somewhat the atmospheric temperature. In this analysis, this temperature, reference temperature, is taken as 25 degrees Celsius. That is lowest possible temperature at which the heat can be released as compared to the highest possible temperature. So if the heat is released at the high, this is at the lowest possible temperature, then with that higher temperature and with this lower temperature, with low grade energy, this is the amount of energy available which is not recovered. It is unrecovered. Unrecovered. Remember, this is unrecovered. This is the amount of energy which is unrecovered, which otherwise should have been recovered. But as we know, this is theoretical. We cannot go for 25 degrees Celsius. It is not feasible. So then there has to be some feasible lowest possible temperature. And again, conforming to the coal-fired boiler, wherein mostly the highest amount of waste heat is there, it is the reference temperature is taken as 150 degrees Celsius. It is at 150 degrees Celsius. This is at 150 degrees Celsius. Then we have the waste heat available is very low at low temperature. But still, if this is recovered, if still this low heat is recovered, then with this reference temperature corresponding to the Carnot efficiency, the work potential is very high. So hence, with this, we can say that as compared to now the high temperature zone, I will not go into again reiterating these things. As compared to the low temperature and high temperature, you will notice that the high temperature zone, there is less scope for unrecovered heat, means most of the high temperature heat is recovered. Even with reference temperature is also it is recovered, and it is up to the extent of maximum possible work potential. So there is very less scope for study, very less scope for doing some research and developing some systems to recover this heat. as compared to the low temperature. You will notice that there is a very considerable margin of heat that can be recovered if it is ideally released at 25. But if it is theoretically relieved at 150 degrees Celsius, which is the feasible temperature, still there is a higher scope of work potential, and hence this must be targeted. Now, as an engineer, it is our responsibility to suggest, design the equipment, to suggest the systems which will recover this low temperature waste heat effectively. There are certain systems which are already doing these things. It is energy consumption, then waste heat, and work potential. So again, you will notice that this energy consumption is there, heat recovery already in place, but the work potential, and this waste heat. So in short, there is a scope for even to redefine, to revisit all those equipments which are already doing this recovery, because there is a scope for the higher work potential. Same is the case with the no heat recovery. So there are certain sources where there is no heat recovery. So we should go for design of equipment for such applications also. Summary: while going with this waste heat recovery system, it is necessary to go for first finding the cost, because in the initial phase I said that the three feasibility criteria must be satisfied. The first feasibility criteria is the conceptual feasibility. That is, whatever you are suggesting, it must be validated by the thermodynamic laws. Second feasibility is the manufacturing feasibility. Whatever you are suggesting, it must be manufacturable. And the third, but not the last, is not the least, is the cost. It is said in Marathi, की सगळी सोंग आणता येतात, पैशाचं सोंग आणता येत नाही. Whatever you provide, suggest it must be cost benefit, cost effective. And to decide whether it is cost effective or not, this is the term which is usually used, that is long payback period. So actually, there should not be long payback period, it should be a short payback. The smallest possible time, whatever money you have spent must be recovered. If you open old book, the production technology book, you will find that the payback period is given as 5 years. But now, if you say that my payback period is 5 years, nobody will purchase the equipment. Nowadays, this payback period is reduced to less than 1 year. Whatever you provide, it must be recovered in less than 1 year. Because all technologies may become obsolete in 1 year. Hence, the payback period must be less than 1 year. And considering all material constraints, you should have a match between cost and life. This balance must be achieved. That is what the skill of design engineer. Match the balance between requirement and the cost. Then economic of scale, that I have to explain. The temperature restrictions, that is lack of an end use. You may have some restrictions on the end use. Material constraints, sometimes the high temperature, low temperature, and thermal cycling. The thermal cycling term is that there are certain processes in which the material is subjected to a high temperature, and then it is subjected to a low temperature. High temperature, low temperature, as we discussed in the hot wheel, that the matrix is subjected to first high temperature. It may be very hot. And then in the second phase, hardly in few seconds, microseconds, that material is exposed to a low temperature. There is possibility of thermal stresses being developed, and this will lead to a failure. While designing the system, this is also to be taken care of. That is, what is that temperature at which the system is working, what is that lower temperature at system is working, and what is that range of high and low temperature in which the system is working, so that the system will not fail or the system will have a higher working life. Heat transfer rate, this is related because we cannot have more. Okay, but nowadays the augmentation techniques are used. You can provide microfilms, you can provide external fins, you can provide inserts, you can provide vibrations, or you can go for nanofluids so that the heat transfer rate is increased. What is the effect of heat transfer rate? The effect of heat transfer rate is that you can work, you can offer a higher performance in a controlled temperature limits. And at the same time, the size of the equipment will be reduced, performance will increase. The chemical composition of the heat available, that is very important. You must be knowing that in vapor absorption system, copper tubes are not used, but it is mild steel. Mild steel. The absorber is made up of mild steel. Particularly in the aqua ammonia uh, system, because it has an affinity with the copper, so it will form oxides, and then that material will become weak and it will fail. So accordingly, you have to check for the affinity of the fluid which is having the heat content and the material over which the fluid will be flowing. So that is to be first taken care of. And secondly, what is the chemical composition of the fluid which is having the heat content? And let us say effluent. Effluent. The effluent is very acidic. Effluent is very acidic, but it is very hot. Then definitely you should think of what will be the cost of recovering this heat, because the very acidic effluent will hamper the heat transfer surface, will make the heat transfer surface weak. Then what is the use of developing a system and using this very acidic effluent, which is very, very hot? It is, the feed water is very, very hot. I know that it is coming from a nuclear reactor. What is the purpose in recovering this? Similarly, before going to design and recovery of the heat, you should know what is the chemical composition of that fluid which is carrying that heat. At the end, the takeaway of this session, we have discussed and seen which are the different sources of waste heat and which are the different waste heat losses. We also seen the different waste heat opportunity areas, that is low temperature waste heat sources, should go for optimization of existing waste heat recovery systems. Then should go for very, though the high temperature systems are there and nothing new is happening in that, we should try for some new things to be there in the high temperature system. Should go for very innovative, unconventional heat recovery systems. Non-fluid sources. This is a limitation, and it is not area which is touched upon most of the cases. And I have given one example, that is uh, peat ash, which is very hot. It is not taken care of. There is reason. There is reason. Why usually the fluid is taken care of, because fluid has a quality to flow. To flow. It will flow with a given pressure difference. The fluid will flow. But for a non-fluid heat source, to flow the heat source, you will require some external power additional to take it to the recovery system. Once the heat is recovered, take it out, and then again put another. So this will make a non-commercial heat recovery. So then you have to think of what best can be possible so that it will become a commercial system. This is again one of the research area. We have seen the piezoelectric, we have seen the thermoelectric, we have also seen the is and photovoltaic, the thermal photovoltaic, and last is this non-fuel sources, which wherein we can develop some systems to recover the heat. Nothing is successful if if we do not know the barriers, that is limitations. And these are some of the limitations. That is, the cost is limitation, the temperature is limitation, process itself is limitation, material is limitation, availability is limitation. With all these limitations, we are required to design certain new things, and hence there are tremendous R&D opportunities that we should encash. We should work upon such R&D requirements. As we have still 5 minutes, 2 minutes with me, it is necessary to optimize the existing technologies and developing new technologies to recover the heat. Industry do not want very huge system. They want small system, and preferably the online system. If there is an online system, this is the place where there is a loss, heat loss is there. So nearer to that space, if something is given which will recover the heat, the industry people are most satisfied people, because they do not want uh, this heat source to be taken from one place to another. The transportation charges they want to minimize. This is how we can go with this. Uh, I'm at the fag end of this session. Uh, I will share a very small experience with you, and then I will stop. At one time, when I was alone at my home and I was forced to make tea, when I put the utensil on the gas stove, I forgot. And then after some time, I came and I found that entire water was evaporated. And just I thought that how much time I went outside, and in that time the water gets evaporated. So I thought, uh, can we come up with some efficiency parameter? And hence I did some calculation on gas segri. You must have noticed that there is a low and high, and the mass flow rate of LPG gas is given. The calorific value is also given. So I use that and I find out what is the efficiency of this heating system that I did. To my surprise, I found it was hardly 36, 37%. So means total 63% was wastage. And it triggered a point that what should I do for this? And I offered this as a BTech project to my students, Irfan Mullah and David Bhatt. And we tried to suggest certain things, and we come up with 3 different options. And one of that was to recover the waste heat, that is the flame heat which was otherwise lost. So we suggested, and that which was mentioned there as a post Marshall Best Project Award. So that Best Project Award was given to this project, which we did with Irfan Mullah and David Bhatt, and we suggested 3 different options to increase the performance of a domestic stove. So the purpose of giving this example is that even whatever raw experiment you perform, the raw experiment can also lead to a good research work. Please do it. Let us see that these 3 sections which I have discussed. One is the piezoelectric, second is the thermoelectric, and third is the thermophotovoltaic. I think I expect that some research work will be done in these areas. Then I will say that the purpose of delivering this session is satisfied. I am thankful to all attendees who listened carefully